Yes, sir. I'm waiting for the recording to begin, and it has begun. So today is July 8th, 2021. This is the 689th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meet. I'm Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. And we have a quorum, sir, and all are present. The time is 10 a.m. I'm handing this over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. I call the 689th Arizona Racing Commission, or regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting of July 8th to session. We'll move to the executive.
Mr. Chair, if it'd be okay, I would just like to say a couple of words about a previous member of staff who's recently passed away.
Yes, sir. The floor is yours.
Sure. For those who don't know, our previous director of racing, Bill Walsh, he passed away on June 24th. I had the privilege to serve as a commissioner during Bill's term, and I can attest to Bill's dedicated life of service to our sport with the greatest of passion. May Bill's family be blessed with the memories and love, as we as a sport have been blessed with his years of service and passion for our sport. Fair winds and following seas, Director Walsh. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Garay. Thank you for bringing that up. Appreciate it. We will move to item B, Executive Session 1, Sims versus Sims. I'm going to go ahead and table that item as we don't have any updates on our end that we need to move forward on that one. We'll move to Executive Session item B2. It looks like Mr. Yother has signed up to speak on this item. Mr. Yother, is that accurate?
Yes, sir, Mr. Coolidge. Lloyd Yother with the Arizona Quarter Racing Association and the HVPA.
Yes, sir.
My question, I guess, is for my edification is, why does this keep appearing on there? I thought this was brought before the commission back in November and was settled, and it's been on the agenda every month. It seems like we're wasting time every month going over the same stuff that's been approved and are ruled on, and I guess my question is why do we keep? I think enough is enough. Why do we keep bringing this issue back to the table?
Yes, sir. I appreciate that, and that's why we have been moving it to the end of the agenda as a whole, just to make sure that anyone that's attending the meetings, we're trying to honor your time. We know everyone's busy here, but as you might imagine, with all of these legal proceedings, nothing moves quickly in that world. So as a commission, we need to make sure that we're spending time to keep an eye on that and make sure that we are advised by our legal counsel to act accordingly within those justifications. So appreciate your input on it. Believe me, we are always trying to keep these agendas as concise as possible, but with these executive session legal proceedings, we have to keep them on until we are advised that they have been resolved.
Understood, and I just was curious, and I do know that you're moving to the end of the session, but it's taken up a lot of time, your time, and other things that we could be working on, like track conditions and backside conditions and all the other stuff that's ongoing that seems to be more of a prevalent from my viewpoint. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your answer.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
That said, I would move that we enter executive session.
Second.
Thank you. Having a motion made to go into executive session and by Chair Coolidge and seconded by Commissioner Olson, I'll call roll. Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Time is 10:04 a.m. and we are in a recess for executive session.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, we are going back into the second open session of the July 8th, 2021 689th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting. Commission Secretary Cassie Goodwin. I will call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay? You're muted still, sir.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. The time is 10:19. Commissioner Coolidge, the floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving to item C1, the permit renewal hearing for Tucson Greyhound Park. I know we have a couple of people that have signed up to speak on this. Alicia, do you want to jump in here?
Well, right now, there's not much for me to say. I haven't heard what the commission has to say or the state, so can I speak later if necessary?
Yes, ma'am. I was just giving you the floor early.
Thank you.
If it pleases the chair, I do have a question for Alicia instead of just waiting until later. Alicia, can you speak a little bit about, you and I did speak this morning, and I do believe you're working with the department on this issue, or I don't know if it's really an issue or not, but on the financial due diligence report, there was an item identified as not having enough workman compensation insurance. Can you update us on that?
Correct. We've been having only the $500,000, and I mean, it may be an oversight, but ever since I've been here, that's the amount that we've carried. I don't know if there was a previous agreement or not, but I did reach out to Director Casillas regarding this on April 14th, and I gave him a request for it to be lowered to $500,000 as we no longer have live racing. We have 70% less employees today. Our classification of our employees no longer includes any high-risk categories. And he did respond saying your request has been received and will be taken into consideration. Tucson Greyhound Park has no problem bringing it up to $1 million if necessary, but it's for some reason ever since, even prior to me, because Tom Taylor was the one that was doing the permits, it's always been at $500,000.
Does the department have any input on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Based on the facts that were presented, I believe that the fact that they do not have full operations as in the past, that I believe that 500 would be sufficient. I would welcome any comments or concerns from the commission itself, but I think that it would be adequate.
I tend to agree with you on that, especially without the live racing. Commissioner Gore, I'd love to get your thoughts on it, considering no one on the commission knows more about the Greyhound Park than you do.
No, I would agree with that. I just wanted to make sure, since it was in a yellow status and had said that it was not at what we would normally require, I just wanted to make sure that we had it on the record that this was okay. So thank you, Rudy, for that input.
I would go ahead and move that we approve the permit renewal for Tucson Greyhound Park years 2020, 2021, and 2022 pursuant to ARS 5-1080.
Chair Coolidge, do you mind if I ask a few more questions before we move to the motions?
I'll go remove my motion. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. And I suppose this is for Tucson Greyhound Park, but I noticed that there was a red area on the analysis by the independent financial due diligence report, and it said that there was no formal forecast or business plan that existed. Is there a plan to create one, or if not, could you explain why not?
We honestly never had one prior. I could possibly create one, but during the time that we were being audited and everything, it was COVID-19, so everything was up in the air. Didn't know what was going on day to day, whether we'd be closed down again because of COVID-19, whether we'd be open. So if you'd like me to create a plan, I can attempt to do that, but we have never had one before.
Thank you for your response. Director Casillas, I have a couple questions for you. I noticed on the initial form that there was a form that was not filled out, and I suppose maybe that form wasn't applicable or necessary, but I wanted to double check with you first. It's Form ADR 241, the application for teletrack wagering. Is that form required? And maybe Mr. Estrada is the right person to answer that question.
So in reviewing all documents, everything seems to be in order. There's really, in concurring with the due diligence report, overall, it appears that TGP is proactively taking measures to remain profitable. Those forms, like I said, they're completely filled out. The only thing I would say is that if it goes to approval, that the permit gets approved contingent of the department receiving the investigation payment. That's the only thing that's pending for TGP.
Thank you, Mr. Estrada. So, Director Casillas, do you concur with that recommendation that the permit be granted upon that condition stated by Mr. Estrada?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Mr. Estrada, are you requesting to speak again?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I forgot to bring my hand up.
No problem.
Thank you, Chair Coolidge. I appreciate the opportunity to ask questions.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Gore, anything on your end?
I am good on my end. And
go ahead, sir.
I would like to make a motion to approve Tucson Greyhound Park's 3-year permit contingent on the payment for the investigative report.
Second.
Thank you. Having a motion made by Commissioner Garay to approve the Tucson Greyhound Park permit for 2020, 2021, and 2022 contingent on receiving the investigative report payment, and seconded by Chair Coolidge, I will call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to Ms. Federico. Do you have your hand raised for the next item or for your previous item?
For the previous item, I just wanted to thank the commission and the department for approving our permit for another 1.5 years until I guess we begin harness racing.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move to action item D1. We have a lot of people signed up to speak today on a number of items. My request, or the Commission's request to you, is if you do not have anything new to add, please step down from speaking. I'm going to put a cap at 3 minutes, and in the event that we need to go back and forth, we will do a 1-minute rebuttal just to keep this pithy. Otherwise, we will move into D1, request from Arizona Downs for off-track betting facilities, and that will be A, Mr. Haney's Castaway Sports Bar and Padre Murphy's Sports Bar. As we move into this, Mr. Author, do you have anything to add? Mr. Delaney, do you have anything on your end?
I'm sorry, this is Dave Author.
Mr. Author, go ahead.
I was trying to figure out an appropriate sequence of speakers, and Commissioner Coolidge, maybe you've already figured that out, but it seems to me that we should inquire of the division to see whether or not all of the appropriate paperwork is in, because we did receive the approval from the City of Phoenix in an 8-0 vote where they recommended the approval of the OTB transfers to Arizona Downs, and that was one of the issues from the last meeting. So if perhaps Juan could tell us if, first of all, that all the appropriate paperwork is in, and then maybe we can find out who has objected to this, and then maybe we could respond to those objections rather than have us start speaking about objections that we anticipate are going to be raised before they're raised. Does that make sense to you, Chairman Coolidge?
I don't have a problem with that. Would the department like to speak as the final agreements are in place? Is there any remaining paperwork? Everything looks like it's been requested and approved that I've seen on our documents here, but I would open it up to the department, whether the director could see it.
As far as this meeting goes for Tucson Greyhound Park. Period.
Ms. Federico, would you mind muting your line, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is Juan Estrada from the Department of Gaming. Just giving you a quick update on the approval for the OTB. We have received all the paperwork. Everything looks in order. We received the city approvals as well. The only thing that is pending is inspection from the department. I just want to make a note that the Arizona Downs did submit pictures. However, I would rather have an agent inspect the facility before giving them full approval. They did indicate that castaways will be ready for inspection sometime next week. Also, Padre Murphy's is pending inspection, and I'll have an investigator out at that location inspecting it after this meeting. That's what I have on our end.
So, Mr. Estrada, is it, just to make sure I'm understanding you, your recommendation is that it be approved pending or contingent on successful inspections?
That is correct, for both locations.
Thank you.
So obviously we're ready to support those two applications, and we ask that if anybody is objecting to it, that we be allowed to respond to those objections and save our time for those responses.
We'll just jump down to. I'm on the wrong page. Stand by. We'll jump down to Mr. Johnson or Mr. Claus. Do you want to speak on this?
Yes, Chairman Coolidge, thank you. This is Scott Claus from Dickinson Wright on behalf of Turf Paradise. Chairman Coolidge, a few meetings ago in the April meeting, I believe, you asked why the 60-mile rule was being argued to the commission, and this is the manifestation of the Arizona Downs' failure to obtain the approvals that are required by Section 3004B of the Interstate Horse Racing Act, which is the 60-mile rule. I'll be very brief. Section 3004B is mandatory. It is expressed in mandatory terms. It states that any OTB within 60 miles of a currently operating track shall obtain the approval of such track. Arizona Downs has not sought and has not obtained the approval of all tracks within 60 miles of Padre Murphy's and Haney's. Padre Murphy's and Haney's are within 5 miles of Turf Paradise and within 1 mile of Turf Paradise's OTBs. We presaged when Arizona Downs decided that it wished to violate federal law, that it would attempt to poach Turf Paradise's OTBs. That is exactly what Arizona Downs has done in violation of federal law. You will, I'm sure, hear arguments from Mr. Author about standing and about jurisdiction. Those arguments are nonsensical because this is not a court of law. Standing is a jurisdictional requirement under Article 3 of the Constitution and applies only in federal courts. It does not apply to this commission. But I would ask this. I would ask either Mr. Langhofer or one or both of the Author brothers, when they argue that Section 3004B does not require them to obtain the approval of a currently operating track within 60 miles of their off-track betting facility, if that's not what that section means, then what does that section mean? Because Congress does not create statutes that are meaningless. Again, those OTBs are within 5 miles of the racetrack. They are within 1 mile of an OTB. Federal law requires Arizona Downs to obtain the approval of Turf Paradise, which it has not done. This commission, we would ask, because it is required to by state law, to follow federal law. And so that is why we would ask the commission to not approve Padre Murphy's and Haney's, and I'll answer any questions that the commission has.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Johnson, do you have anything else you'd like to echo with that?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Actually, I would just like to bring up a couple points and then cede the rest of my time to Council Scott Claus, just in case he needs any more time. But I would just bring up that in the past, Arizona Downs, when they asked for the teletrack permit, they came to the commission and they informed the commission that they needed a teletrack permit to generate PERS revenue. And there was a lot of concerns at that time that they were going to try and go after our Turf Paradise OTBs or put them right next to ours. And they ensured the commission that that wasn't their goal. In fact, it's in their business plan that they submitted that they were going to create their own OTB network because Turf Paradise needed revenue from the OTBs to sustain PERSes. Arizona Downs told the commission that there was $100 million left on the table in the Arizona OTB network and that they weren't interested in Turf Paradise's OTBs. Their goal was to grow and expand the OTB network. It's obvious that that's not the case. What you're witnessing right now is a cannibalization of the Arizona OTB network, which is what a lot of people warned and said would happen, and now it's coming to fruition. Thank you.
Understood. I do have a question for Mr. Claus. I think Arizona Downs had submitted to us, there was 3 cases, off the top of my head. I was kind of hoping that you might explain why you believe that they don't fit into this scenario.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner Garay. Actually, Arizona Downs only submitted 1 case from the First Circuit Court of Appeals. Arizona Downs is not within the First Circuit. It is within the Ninth Circuit. The First Circuit Court of Appeals has no application to federal courts in Arizona. But that's important, Commissioner Garay. The First Circuit Court of Appeals decision from 1999 has nothing to do with this commission's decision to enforce federal law or this commission's statutory requirement to enforce federal law. But let's talk about that 1 case that Arizona Downs submitted, that 1 case from 1999, the First Circuit case. That case rested on the presumption, that case only decided that a track within 60 miles does not have the ability under federal law to file a lawsuit in federal court to enforce in federal court Section 3004B. That is the only issue that was decided by that First Circuit Court of Appeals. But importantly, and this is, Commissioner Gray, this is the most important part, the rationale that the court used in deciding that a party, a 60-mile tract, does not have a private right of action in federal court, the justification was its assumption that the commission would enforce the law and that the commission would prohibit, as is required by the IHA, an OTB within 60 miles of the track to operate that track without the approval of the 60-mile track. That was the reason why that 1 court decided that there was no private right of action, and that is the only thing the court decided. But it did so based on its assumption that the commission would do its job and enforce federal law. We, Turf Paradise, cited 3 cases, granted not in the Ninth Circuit either, but 3 cases that stand for the opposite proposition. That 1, The IHA is mandatory because it says shall obtain the approval. And so Section 3004B is a mandatory requirement. 3 federal cases that say that Section 3004B is a mandatory requirement. And without the consent, and this is a very important point, without the consent of the track, the 60-mile track, every single wager that is placed at Padre Murphy's or Haney's violates federal law. And because it violates federal law, it violates state law. Because state law, 5112B, says that every single wager must comply with the Interstate Horse Racing Act. So I hope I've answered your question, but if I've left any gaps whatsoever, I really would appreciate the opportunity to address them. You have any questions?
I have a follow-up question for you. Some of the cases submitted regarding the IHA interpretation of the 60-mile rule discuss, for lack of better terms, that it would be unreasonable to interpret the 60-mile rule to allow the other tracks to have a sort of veto power on the agreement. Can you explain or respond to that?
Sure. Well, so the congressional intent is manifest in the statute, but also the congressional intent is reflected in the legislative history. And I'm going to respectfully disagree with the notion that the one case it is the district court case that then led to the First Circuit case. So it is just that one case that the rationale is recapitulated by the First Circuit that was set forth in the district court case that led to the First Circuit decision. That somehow, even though Congress used the mandatory word shall, that the track should not have a private right of action to serve as a veto power. But that does not mean that either Congress did not intend for a track to withhold its approval, or that the approval is not required for the wager, the interstate wager, to be legal under federal law and thus state law. The congressional history on Section 3004B demonstrates that it was implemented specifically to allow tracks to not have their business poached. That is the most simple way for both you and for anyone else listening. For a track not to have its betting, wagering business poached by allowing outside OTBs within 60 miles of that track. And this agenda item is a manifestation of exactly the business practice that Congress was intending and expressed in its legislation to avoid. Congress intended to prevent Turf Paradise's business within 60 miles of being poached. And Arizona Downs is trying to do exactly that. And that's why we would ask the Commission to enforce, in this case, the 60-mile rule, to make manifest Congress's intention to prevent OTBs such as Arizona Downs from poaching the business of a track by opening up OTBs within 60 miles of that track. And I'll answer any more. I hope I've answered your question, Commissioner Olson, but I'm happy to answer any further questions you have.
If there are no more questions, we'll move over to, I think, Mr. Delaney, you had your hand raised. Correct, sir?
Your microphone's muted, Mr. Delaney. Please unmute and start again. Thank you.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I just heard. I feel like a pawn in a chess game here, to be honest with you. And I can just tell you, briefly that there's no way that the federal government would, that the Congress would create monopolies through legislation. It's unconstitutional, and that's essentially that. Second thing is, I made my own choice for Arizona Downs. I wasn't poached. I wasn't defrauded. I wasn't. It was a free business decision I made. That I asked myself, could this monopoly be allowed to be, to continue? And I mentioned restraint of trade, and I made the choice. Listen, I made the choice to go with Arizona Downs. Their technology is better. They're paying me rent. and it's going to bring a whole new quality of better. In addition, I believe they're a better partner for sports betting, which is in the future. And so I made the business decision, and I don't believe that it's in the Commission's purview to really get in the way of that business decision when it's been made under, it would not be, it just wouldn't be fair. It would really threaten my business if you were to put another delay or were to disapprove this and preventing me from making a business decision. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
I do have a question for Mr. Delaney. Am I to understand that you did this on your own? No one from Arizona Downs approached you regarding this?
Well, actually, I went through a third party, and because I asked myself, well, I knew the agreement was coming up. I never signed an agreement with Turf Paradise, by the way. I should say that. The agreement was signed with the former owner of Padre Murphy's, and I took control November 8th. We took control November 8th of 2020. So basically, I looked at the condition of the machines. I looked at certain aspects of the, just the economics of the track, and I was like, you know what, why aren't we getting rent? They're using our facilities. A lot of the guests don't purchase a lot of food and drink, but they do tip our servers well. And I just said, is there a monopoly? Is there only one? And then I got the whole story of this saga between Turf Paradise and Arizona Downs. And so I pursued it, and I'm not sure who contacted who first, but it was right about the same time, because it was on record that that Tom Boyle's contract with Turf Paradise was expiring, and I chose not to renew it, and I chose to go with Arizona Downs. So I was not coached. I was not, underhandedly pursued. I actively did my due diligence, because I don't believe that this city or state would now allow an active monopoly like Turf Paradise claims to be.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you stepping in. I'll shoot it back over to, actually, why don't we ask, if Mr. Field, you've signed up to vote. Do you have anything to add to your side of the Castaway Bar? Great. Okay. Anybody else from Arizona Downs or Turf Paradise need to speak?
I do have a question.
Please state your name on the record, ma'am.
Sorry, please identify yourself.
My name is Dina, and my question is, what happened to CF Fabulous Zanbo yesterday after she was banned off? There are 3 other horses in June that were also banned off: CF Dog Spire Secret, Zoom and
That's I think it's different.
Ma'am,
I'd like to know what happened to those horses, please.
Sorry, ma'am, if that has nothing to do with the agenda item we're discussing, and if you have particular...
But I think that that's an item that's important to discuss.
Sorry, we'll move over to Turf Paradise or Arizona Downs. Y'all have anything else you need to add to this? Otherwise, I'll open it up to the commissioners. And if you have any other legal questions, we can go to executive session for legal.
I think, Chairman, did Maureen need to speak?
Oh, hey, guys, hang tight 1 second. Mr. Langhofer, do you have anything to add? I'll just go through the list so we don't have to bombard each other here.
I do. Thank you.
3 minutes, sir.
This feels a little bit like Groundhog Day. I think this is the 3rd time that this issue's been brought before this commission. The first time was in September of 2018. And as you'll recall, at least Commissioner Gray will recall because he was there, the commission voted to give Arizona Downs the right to open tracks in Maricopa County with Turf Paradise's apparent consent. We briefed that. I'm sure you've listened to the recording of that meeting. That's an important moment, and the Turf waived this issue back then. It was then rebriefed. I think we had 2 or 3 meetings with you all on this exact issue. You ordered additional briefing. We all submitted that. We argued it. It was decided back in April. Here we are again. In the meantime, it's been argued to the Phoenix City Council. They rejected that argument just this last week. Now there's new litigation on it, as you probably know, between the tracks. That doesn't give anyone license to reopen the issue and bring it up before you again. There's a couple of points that Mr. Claus made on the legal authorities that I think need to be corrected. They did not cite any case for the idea that the 60-mile rule is mandatory and must be enforced by the commissions. In fact, the case law goes the other way. What it says is Congress wanted to protect live racing, and that's why the 60-mile rule exists. And the First Circuit says they're going to trust those decisions, those policies, to commissions like this. Back in September of 2018, when you authorized Arizona Downs to open Maricopa County Maricopa County OTBs, you did that so that we would preserve competition in the state. We wouldn't have a single state monopoly for one track. The only way of making Arizona Downs financially viable, as you know, is to have meaningful OTB presence for them. That competition, the existence of two live racing tracks, is exactly what the 60-mile rule was intended to preserve. And what we're seeing now, with the third time Turf Paradise is bringing this up to you, is they're upset that competition in fact exists. They prefer the old system where there was a monopoly. And when people like Mr. Delaney, you just heard from, comes to you and says, look, I made a free choice. I looked at the options here. We've got better equipment, better financial deal. We're going to have better. This is good for the long-term state of his business, and he thinks racing. That's exactly the sort of decision that you were trying to give to people. That's the sort of flexibility that the 60-mile rule is trying to let the commission implement for its states, and this is a success of the policy, not a failure. There's nothing illegal about this. I just respectfully submit that Mr. Claus's argument has been tried 2 times and failed, and is not well supported by the authorities for all the reasons we've previously briefed to you. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but really, I think we've gone over this ground enough already.
Understood. Thank you, sir. Chairman Coolidge, may I use the minute for rebuttal to just one of the points that Mr. Langhofer made?
I'll give you 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. So I hope you all have Section 3004B in front of you. We have not come to the Commission 3 times on this issue. 3004B states that every off-track betting office, that is an OTB, shall obtain the approval. Padre Murphy's and Haney's have never come before this commission for approval. Padre Murphy's and Haney's have never been considered by this commission as falling in with the 60-mile rule. So Section 3004B expressly states that every off-track betting office shall obtain the approval from a track within 60 miles of that off-track betting office. And this is the first time that has happened. Secondly, as I predicted, you did not hear Mr. Langhofer offer any cogent explanation as to what Section 3004 means if it doesn't mean what it actually says, that these OTBs shall be required to obtain the approval of Turf Paradise. Finally, a 60-mile radius is not, by any definition or stretch of the imagination, a monopoly. It is a express provision enacted by Congress.
That's time, sir.
Thank you.
I'll now open it up. Okay. Mr. Langhofer, 60 seconds to you, and then I think we'll open it back up to the commissioners.
Thank you. I'm not going to use my whole 60 seconds. We've already spent too much time on this. I will say this. If you can reopen an issue by browbeating the commissioners and other licensees with the same arguments again, and then persuade the commission to switch its vote, 3 months later just because they're exhausted of it all, I think that's arbitrary and capricious. It suggests there's not a real principle behind the decisions, but just a symptom of exhaustion. And that's not a sustainable path for this commission or the industry. Thanks.
This is Jerry Sims. Can I make a comment, please?
Mr. Sims, I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay. I just want to respond to some of the things Mr. Langhofer said. Number one, I spoke to David Benton from the city attorney's office, and he told me clearly that the city council cannot entertain any racing rules. The only thing they look at is how many complaints, police calls, and that kind of an item of neighborhood complaints that they deal with. They do not deal with the things we're talking about today. Also want to just mention that I did not agree in 2018. Dave Johnson looked at me after and said, when this came up, you never agreed. But anyway, just wanted to respond to that. Thank you very much.
Understood. Thank you, sir. I'm going to open it up to the commission. Any of my commissioners have anything that they want to bring up?
Just one item, because, and I don't know if the representative from Padres is still here. I believe the sale of Padre Murphy's was in 2018. Is that correct?
No.
Or November. I'm sorry.
No. November of 2020.
2020.
Correct.
And at that point in time, you were running under Turf Paradise, correct?
Correct. Yes, and had been for some time. And so, but again, what I wanted to see was to pursue options for racing. The former owner told me that OTB was vital to our operation. I've seen that that's absolutely the case, and I'd like to be motivated, to do it. And so we changed some things when we took over ownership. And one of the things I wanted to change was the racetrack for OTB.
And don't worry, it's not a gotcha for you. My questioning is more because it was brought up that Murphy's and all that has not been before the commission prior, and there had been a sale, and my question would be for someone else, why wasn't the department or the commission notified that this had happened and a new process taken place at that time?
You know what? I don't know. I think you might want to ask Turf Paradise. I'm not sure. I asked them whether we were in compliance with the Racing Commission. We got our licenses from the track. We got our licensed OTB operators, and so we got all the proper paperwork done.
Right, and on my part, I don't know if when that process of the sale went through, if for the department, if there needed to be a new submission of all the applications and approval by the commission. So I just found it odd that there was a sale, new ownership, and the commission had never approved. It's a separate operation from ours. We were told by Turf Paradise that everything was in compliance, and that's what we understood it to be. Okay. Again, like I said, not a gotcha for you.
I understand.
Rory, do you have a request directly for the department?
Yes, I would like to understand this a little bit more of how a OTB could change hands and we, the commission, not even approve the licensee for that.
Mr. Gray, this is the director. They shouldn't have been able to do that, number one. And quite frankly, this is the first that I'm hearing that Padre Murphy's changed its hand back in 20. So that was done incorrectly. Turf Paradise should have informed the division, and the new ownership should have been submitting an application and allowed the division to do its due diligence to see if they were considered suitable.
No, thank you.
Well, we did receive track approval as OTB. We were fully licensed by the track. Greg Stiles, who I believe is on the call, was the one we met and got us licensed. So we do have a license under Padre Murphy's, just not before the commission itself. But we obtained the licenses necessary as OTB operators by the commission, by the state.
And like I said, again, it's not a gotcha. I just want to make sure going forward that if an OTB changes hands, that the proper procedures through the department take place, and then the approval by the commission is granted.
Understood.
Thank you, Chair Gray. Good input on that.
I have a follow-up question. I'm sorry, Chair Coolidge.
Commissioner Olson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. And this is going back to one of the comments, to follow up on a comment that Mr. Claus made. And so I suppose this question is for Arizona Downs. He mentioned that Arizona Downs did not seek approval, and I just wanted to confirm that was correct, and just a brief explanation of your position of why it wasn't sought or why you don't think it was necessary to seek.
Mr. Author, I see your hand raised anyway, so why don't you go ahead and answer that?
Chairman Coolidge and Commissioner Olson, I'm approval for what approval are you?
I believe it was Mr. Claus's reference to the 60-mile approval, and so I just wanted to close the loop on his statement that Arizona Downs didn't seek a 60-mile approval.
Well, there's a couple things. One, they had a number inside our 60 miles. We had some that said that it just was never done. And number two, we had an agreement with Turf Paradise and they with us on showing their signal at our OTBs and our signal at their OTBs. So there was a cooperative effort. Nobody ever brought up the 60-mile situation. So now suddenly it's become an important issue. A couple other interesting things. Turf Paradise was the first one to take anybody's OTB. They took an OTB from us in Fountain Hills, and we didn't get in front of the commission and say they coached or poached. We didn't coach or poach anybody. Padre Murphy's approached us, the previous owner, who's a lifelong friend of ours. So we waited until the lease was up. We didn't encourage anybody to break a lease. And finally, I just, because I'm signed up to speak anyway, Mr. Klaus is incorrect. There's been two cases, one thrown out on summary judgment, the other lost and then appealed, and it lost at appeal. And in that, the judge said, if granted a private remedy, 60-mile tracks could unilaterally destroy an off-track betting facility by withholding approval and suing for an injunction. Does that sound familiar? As nothing in the statute requires that 60-mile tracks grant approval if they had a private remedy, they might be able to withhold approval unreasonably and still receive injunctive relief. Such a situation will allow a third party to undermine the contractual process between the parties with a proprietary interest and the potential buyers, preventing the sale of this product entirely. And here's where it's most important. The 60-mile tracks could exploit a veto power by using it as a weapon to squeeze high fees in return for grants of approval. Importantly, the unilateral veto, which requires no state concurrence, could also interfere with state control over horse racing. Through the self-serving acts of refusing to grant approval and seeking an injunction, a 60-mile track could effectively block a state decision to allow and earn revenue from the interstate sale of races occurring live in the state and conducting off-track betting within state borders. And finally, the court said the court is greatly influenced by the explicit language of the IHA's enforcement and relief actions, that Congress did not intend to provide 60-mile tracks with a private remedy. Now, he is correct that it is up to the commission. The commission has a number of rights they can approve or disapprove. The reason I think commissions, and in this case, that track is still showing off-track betting. It has not been shut down. There's just no reason for you as commissioners to wade into a judicial action. I think it's unfair to you that he would ask you to overrule 3 court decisions. Do it through the courts. I think it's a federal act. If Turf is not happy with the way this has been adjudicated 3 times, let him take it to the court. Stop the lazy shortcut of influencing the commission to determine what should happen on this. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Chairman, may I just have 30 seconds to respond to that, please?
Mr. Claus, I'm going to push hold on that for now. Any of the other commissioners have any questions or concerns? I'm going to move that we enter executive session.
I'll second that.
I'm sorry, I missed that motion. It was what? Was motion?
I moved to go into executive session. It was seconded by Commissioner
Thank
Laura.
you. Appreciate that.
Can we, just before we take the vote, prior to going into executive session, can we take just a 10-minute break before we join in on the executive session?
Let's enter executive session at 11:10. We have a lot to get done.
I genuinely is anyone going to answer the questions being asked in the questions? Exactly.
Madam Secretary,
are you guys going to completely ignore them?
Executive session.
Okay. The motion is on the floor to go into executive session by Chair Coolidge, seconded by Commissioner Garay. The roll call is Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Gray?
Yes.
Commissioner
Hi, are you guys going to answer the questions in the comment section?
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank
There's
you.
5 questions in the comment
into
section.
the
Are you guys
executive session. The time
We have 3
is
yeses moving to enter
11:03
executive
and we are recessed. Okay, thank you. Thank you. This is the third open session of the 689th regular Arizona Racing Commission meeting taking place via Google Meets. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Garay?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. The time is 11:26.
Thank you, ma'am. Opening it back up, Mr. Claus, I will give you the 30 seconds you requested.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. The first issue has to do with the tautology that Mr. Author just referenced. He stated that the First Circuit Court of Appeals case stands for the proposition that there is no private right of action in federal court, and that's all it stands for, but says that our only remedy is federal court and not the commission. A, that makes no sense, and B, it's contrary to exactly what the First Circuit Court of Appeals decided. And I want to just follow up and respond to Ms. Olson's question, just so you have the cases that I cited by their title that stand for the proposition that the 60-mile rule is mandatory. The Western District of Kentucky in 2009, 605 F sub 2nd 870. The Middle District of Florida in 2003, Gulfstream Park versus Tampa Bay Downs. That's 294 F sub 2nd 1291. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, 479 F 3rd 1310. And then the Middle District of Maryland in 2010 in Cloverleaf Enterprises versus Maryland Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association, 730 F sub 2nd 451. 4 federal courts who have deemed that the consents required by Section 3004B are mandatory. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any of my fellow commissioners have any comments they want to bring up?
Just one. My understanding is the IHA was created to protect the live product as OTVs were just starting to come onto the scene, and I've yet to hear anything regarding how Murphy's or the other place would bring harm to a live product at another track, and there is some concerns with me that a permittee could use this as a weapon to harm others. And I'm inclined to, again, I've been here for a while, to stay with what the commission has previously ruled regarding this issue.
Yeah, Commissioner, I agree with you there. I think, we are consistently going through this. It seems like the same objections and the same agenda items every single month, even though we've taken a stand I think it was last month or the one before it, to talk through this. And frankly, it's frustrating. It's the same thing with the horsemen on their previous comments, that we are trying to move forward on things, yet the tracks seem to always have the same disagreements, and it's on one hand we want to do the right thing for the industry, and on the other we are getting bogged down in tit for tat. Commissioner Olson.
Yeah, Chair Coolidge, I'd just like to add to your comments that I think that there's in April we took a vote on the 60-mile rule, and it was agendized, and I think there's a principle of consistency and fair notice that the commission's expressed what they're going to follow, and that vote carried. So I'd also like to just note that Section 3004 of the IHA discusses live tracks, live races, and I don't believe that TP is currently racing live. So I think that's another important point to note. I have a question for the commission, if it be or for the department, if it be appropriate at this point.
Yes, ma'am.
I know Commissioner Gore had some good questions earlier regarding the change of ownership and learning some new facts. Do any of those new facts impact the department's recommendation or the scope of their intended investigation?
I will address that, Commissioner. We would not hold the OTB owner accountable for what has occurred. The permittee should have noticed that OTB owner appropriately that there was a new owner and they had to submit application to the division for its due diligence requirements, and that was not done by the permittee. As a result, going forward, I will ensure that notices are sent out to all permittees reminding them of this type of activity. If there's any new ownership, change of principles within existing OTBs or ADWs, that new applications have to be remitted.
Thank you, Director. And just to reiterate, I believe the department's recommendation is to approve the applications pending successful inspections.
That is correct.
Great. Thank you so much. That's all I have, Chair Coolidge.
Thank you, Commissioner Olson. Sounds like you have a idea of a motion if you'd like to present.
Sure. I'd like to move to approve the request from Arizona Downs for off-track betting facilities, Mr. Haynes Castaways, and Padre Murphy Sports Bar, contingent upon successful inspections by the department.
I will second that. Chuck can have that.
Okay. All right. I have a motion by Commissioner Olson and seconded by Chair Coolidge to approve Castaways OTB and Padre Murphy's OTB contingent upon having a successful inspection by the Division of Racing. So with that noted on the record, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
That motion carries. Both these OTBs are approved contingent on the inspection.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to item D2, simulcast agreements pursuant to ARS 5-112U, Arizona Downs for Churchill Downs and New York Racing Association, Inc. Mr. Estrada, would you give us any updates you have on this, please?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. All is in order. I supplied and reviewed the contract, and again, I would recommend that the contracts be approved.
Looks as the same on my end. Any of my commissioners have any updates on their end or questions? I'll go ahead and move that we approve the simulcast agreements for Arizona Downs for Churchill Downs and New York Racing Association, Inc.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Having a motion by Chair Coolidge, seconded by Commissioner Garay to approve AZ Downs, Churchill Downs, and New York Racing Association simulcast signals. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
That motion carries.
We'll move to action item D2B for Turf Paradise, NYRA, and NYRA Content Management Solutions. Everything looks in order on my end, but Mr. Estrada, any updates on yours?
Nothing here. All looks in order, and would recommend that the Commission approves these two contracts.
Thank you, sir. Any questions or comments from my fellow commissioners?
Everything looked in order on my end from reviewing the paperwork.
Same here. I would move that we approve Turf Paradise's simulcast agreement for NYRA and NYRA Content Management Solutions.
Second that.
Thank you. Having a motion made by Chair Coolidge, seconded by Commissioner Garay to approve the Turf Paradise NYRA for Saratoga and NYRA Content Management for Colonial Downs. I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. Those contracts are approved, and it carries.
We'll move over to item 3, simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA section 3004A1, Arizona Downs,
my favorite one, Presque Isle Downs and Saratoga. Looks like we have Mr. Claus and Mr. Author signed up to speak. Do you still need your time?
I will hold my time to allow Mr. Author.
Is this, where are we now on the agenda? I'm sorry.
3A, Mr. Author.
3A, we don't need to speak. I assume Mr. Estrada has all the right paperwork?
It looks as though on my end, Mr. Estrada, do you have any updates on the department side?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. All is in. All we were pending to fully approve these signals were the 5U approvals, which you guys just approved momentarily.
Yes, sir. Any comments from my fellow commissioners?
I am good on my end.
Nothing for me.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move that we approve Arizona Downs, Presque Isle Downs, and Saratoga simulcast agreement, or excuse me, I would move that we approve simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA 3004A3, Arizona Downs, Presque Isle Downs, and Saratoga.
Second that.
Thank you. Having a motion by Commissioner Coolidge and seconded by Commissioner Garay to approve the simulcast signals for Arizona Downs, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. Those are approved.
Moving to the import signals for Turf Paradise for Saratoga and Colonial Downs. Mr. Estrada, I'll defer to you on any updates that I am not seeing on my paperwork.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Unlike the other two, everything's been submitted. All we were missing were the contract approvals, which got approved momentarily as well. So we'd recommend you guys approve those signals.
Okay, you do have the contracts and they are approved.
That is correct.
Would you mind submitting those to the secretary to send so that the rest of the commissioners can see those as well? It doesn't necessarily have to go now, but the department has already approved. I feel good about moving forward as long as any of the commissioners don't have any questions.
So, Mr. Chairman, you guys just approved it on the last items.
Yeah.
I think, Chair Coolidge, I'm looking at the same thing you are. I think the Turf Paradise under D2B are different from the Turf Paradise under 3B.
Yes, ma'am.
So we didn't just approve these two?
Yeah, NYRA content is Colonial Downs, as you can see all the way towards the end under Turf Paradise 2. It's NYRA Content Management Solutions, Colonial Downs. And then the previous one was Saratoga. So both 1 and 2 on this item were approved just a few seconds ago.
Perfect. Thanks for that explanation.
I would move that we approve the simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3 for Turf Paradise, Saratoga, and Colonial Downs.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Having a motion made by Chair Coolidge, seconded by Commissioner Garay to approve the Saratoga and Colonial Downs signals for Turf Paradise, I'll call the roll. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Carries. Those are approved.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll move to item 4, simulcast horse racing import signals pursuant to IHA Section 3004A3, looking at Turf Paradise, Monarch, and Monarch affiliated. Before I open it up to the vast panel of people who have requested to speak, I will throw some initial comments out that we are still dealing with OA on this case. We have spent significant time looking through all of these, and while they were previously approved, these are new dates that we are looking to approve on these, and they are sitting on OA's desk as is stated before. So again, if you are speaking at the same points as others, please defer your time so that we can keep this train rolling. Some of us have hard stops today. So with that, Mr. Yother, I saw you jump off earlier. Are you still on, and do you need to speak? Otherwise, I'll defer to Mr. Gessman.
Yes, sir, I'm still here, but I'll defer to Mr. Gessman.
Thank you very much. While Mr. Gessman gets his video and audio in order, Mr. Claus, the floor is yours for 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. Mr. Francie and Mr. Sims have also signed up and have ceded their time to me. I would ask for 4 minutes so I could reserve 1 minute for rebuttal.
It is yours.
Thank you. The only agenda item that is before the Commission right now is on D.4 is approval pursuant to Section 3004A3 of the IHA. 3 consents are required to place legal wagers under Section 3004, the racetrack where the race is run, the commission in the state where the race is run, and the commission in the state where the wagers are placed. No other consents are required by federal law. Arizona Downs consent is not required. The Arizona Horsemen's consent is not required by federal law. Section 3004A of the IHA does not contain any language that is the same or similar to ARS 5-112U. This commission has already twice considered whether the simulcast wagering agreement between Monarch and Turf Paradise complies with ARS 5-112U, and the commission has approved that agreement. So when one or both of the Author brothers, their representatives, or their lawyers start arguing to you using words like anti-competitive or deceptive, those arguments have 2 meaningful consequences. One is substantive and the other is procedural. First, substantively, they will be making an argument that the Commission has twice rejected. The Commission just expressed its intent to be consistent. The Commission just rejected application of federal law based upon the principle of consistency. The Commission has twice voted and twice rejected the contention that the simulcast wagering agreement is anti-competitive or deceptive and has approved that agreement. That is not before the Commission today. So when they make that argument, they will be making an argument that has nothing to do with Section 3004A, and that leads to the procedural issue. When they make that argument, they will be violating the procedural rules of this commission because they will be speaking outside of the agenda item, and they will be wasting all of our time. Because the commission has approved the simulcast wagering agreements that identify the tracks in item D.4, and because there are no bases in Section 3004A of the Interstate Horse Racing Act to deny consent, we would ask that the Commission approve the tracks contained in Agenda Item D4 for the importation of those simulcast signals. I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time, but of course I'll answer any questions that the Commission has. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for my fellow commissioners for Mr. Claus?
Just one, Mr. Claus. Obviously, you're an attorney, and I'm sure you're aware that before OA is the issue of, Arizona Downs has taken us to court to OA regarding. Would this not muddy up the whole issue? We already have something going in before OA right now. How does this not muddy up that issue?
Well, as I expressed to your counsel, Kelly Wagner, there is no jurisdictional issue. The commission is free to consider anything. 2, the tracks that are identified in Section D4, I believe 8 of those tracks have never been put before the commission. So those tracks and the consideration of those tracks, the importation of those signals, is not before the Office of Administrative Appeals. 3, the dates for all of the tracks are different from the dates that are before the Office of Administrative Appeals. A decision by the Commission today would not necessarily render the appeal by Turf Paradise moot from a purely legal perspective, but from a practical perspective, it would eliminate a huge issue that is before the Office of Administrative Appeals from its consideration and streamline that appeal. There is nothing in the law, there is nothing in the Arizona regulatory scheme, there is nothing in the procedural rules that prevents the Commission, and there's nothing in logic that prevents the Commission from considering Agenda Item D.4 today, because the majority of the tracks are not before the Office of Administrative Hearing at all. All of the dates are not before the Office of Administrative Hearing at all. There is no procedural bar to the Commission, and the Commission can actually expedite and streamline the appeal by approving these simulcast signals. I hope I've answered your question appropriately. If I have not, please follow up and ask me anything you want.
I'm good on my end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Langhofer, do you want to consolidate the time for Arizona Downs as well?
I'll probably use my 3 minutes, and then the authors can speak separately if they would like.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
There are actually 2 appeals before OA right now. There's one from Turf Paradise and there's one from Arizona Downs. They're related, but they're just very slightly different. We were appealing the approval of Turf Paradise's contract with Monarch, because as long as there's not a similar contract offered to Arizona Downs, that contract is anti-competitive and we think illegal. Turf Paradise is appealing because they think once they get their contract with Monarch approved, they're entitled to have their signals approved. And our position in that is that the Commission can withhold approval of signals, such as it's considering today, as long as it would give rise to an anti-competitive environment. So you're familiar with all that that's been described to you, again, many times. I think it's the 3rd time the issue's come up before the Commission, at least that I've spoken to you on it. And the truth is that bringing up this issue here, having a vote on the merits, will muddy up the OA proceedings. They're trying to get a second, in fact, 3rd bite at the apple here, right? They argued it to you once before, didn't win, now they've taken it to OA for a second bite, now they're coming to you to try to, it would effectively move their appeal if they can get this vote here today. The reason you should vote against it is not only because it's now in OA's hands, you should let them do their job, we'll then come back to you for review and approval of their order, their decision, but also because the original reason why the Commission didn't approve these signals is still true. If you approve this, the Turf Paradise tracks, Turf Paradise is going to have an agreement with Monarch that is absolutely anti-competitive. The offer that Monarch is making to Arizona Downs will not give it commingled betting pools, and that is going to be financially ruinous. They're looking for some other way of creating a monopoly in the state, putting Arizona Downs out of business. Approving these signals and signals like this is going to let that happen. You shouldn't do that. The statute prohibits anti-competitive agreements. It's just that simple. So, look, I don't need to repeat all these arguments. You've heard them at least 2 times before. That's our position on the vote for you today.
I do have one question with what you just said there, that if Turf was to have Monarch and Arizona Downs did not have Monarch, how does that financially ruin your client?
So it's the commingling of the betting pools that is so severe. So if you you can go into a Turf OTB and place a bet that will win, say, $5,000 or $10,000. You can go into Arizona Downs OTB, place the same bet, and because they don't have commingled betting pools under the offer that we've got for Monarch right now, you get maybe just your money back, maybe no more, but maybe $100. Basically, the payout for the exact same bet could be a very small fraction at Arizona Downs OTBs as you would get at Turf Paradise OTBs. Bettors aren't dumb. They're going to figure that out very quickly, and they're going to abandon Arizona Downs OTBs if Monarch's offer, if Monarch is not required to give Arizona Downs an offer that's competitive with the offer they gave to Turf Paradise. Basically, look, if Monarch's going to come to the state and send its signals, it needs to give everyone a similar offer, similar terms. That's our position. It's in litigation. We've argued it to you before. But, look, I don't think that's... what may be debatable about that is the sort of legal argument. Is that, in fact, anti-competitive? Mr. Claus, I think, has an argument about whether that statute should be enforced. What is not subjective about it is the economic effect. It's very clear. If you're a bettor and you can go to one bar and place a bet that pays out $100, and the next bar over places the same bet and you pay out maybe $10,000. I mean, which one are you going to choose? It's not a difficult decision. That part of the problem is not subject to reasonable dispute.
No, thank you. And where I was kind of trying to go, I'm sorry, Mr. Claus, is one little more thing, one more item here. Where I'm trying to get at is this keeps coming up. We have two attorneys, one representing Arizona Downs, one representing Turf. The people that are really getting screwed in this whole thing are our customers that we rely to fund our business. And at some point in time, we got to look out for them and get over this. So it's almost sounding like if Turf had Monarch, what you're saying is the product we're offering right now sucks, and everyone would run over to Turf because they're offering a great product that Monarch presents. And if we're offering our betting public right now a crappy product, we need to start looking out for them and get over this and see what we can do for them. And that's just my point on that. It has nothing to do with my decision today. I was just saying we need to start looking out for our clients. Without them, we're not making money.
Commissioner Gray, that makes perfect sense to me. I agree we need to focus on the consumer here. The status quo right now is that as long as these signals aren't approved, you can't have turf tracks competing on an anti-competitive basis. And so consumers have more or less equal choices. That's a good environment, it's a competitive environment for the consumer. So the status quo, while it's in litigation, is not terrible for the consumers, I think.
Thanks, sir. Chairman Gray, may I respond to Mr. Langhofer, please?
Chairman Coolidge.
Or Chairman Coolidge, I'm sorry. Chairman Coolidge, I apologize for that. May I?
I'll do a 1 minute rebuttal.
Thank you. As I predicted, every single argument that you heard, and he expressly cited ARS 5-112U, every single argument you have heard from Mr. Langhofer has been considered, agendized, voted on, and rejected by this commission twice. Mr. Langhofer did not utter one word regarding the only item that is on the agenda, consent under IHA Section 3004A. Section 3004A has nothing to do with anti-competitive, has nothing to do with commingled betting pools. And as the Ninth Circuit has expressly stated, there is no statute, federal or state, that requires access to commingled betting pools. And Commissioner Garay, you're exactly right. The Commission has voted to approve the simulcast wagering agreement between Monarch and Turf Paradise. When the Commission voted to approve that agreement, it already considered all of Mr. Langhofer's arguments and rejected all of them. But most importantly, it considered that Monarch signals from the tracks that are identified in item D4 would then be simulcast into the state and offer a product to wagering customers in this state that they want, and would infuse literally millions of dollars into the state, which would benefit the pools with the horsemen. It would actually benefit Arizona Downs. It is fundamentally unfair for Mr. Langhofer to keep saying, oh, we've heard all of these arguments before, but then make only arguments that have been rejected by this commission. And if the commission is going to follow the precedent it set today, it should not. It should remain consistent and reject those arguments again, because again, the only item on the agenda is the IHA and not 5-112U. I'll answer any questions anyone has, but thank you, Chairman Coolidge.
Yes, sir. Mr. Guessman, I see you have your video back up. I'd love to hear from the horseman.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge and Commissioners. Leroy Guessman with the Arizona HBPA. I think, as Commissioner Garay just mentioned, I think we all need to step back and remember who pays all of our salaries, who pays for all the purse money. And that is the handicappers that bet on our product. None of you guys would even have a paycheck if it wasn't for the bettors. I think we need to take care of the handicappers. Non-commingled pools would be a big disadvantage to the handicappers. Could you imagine sitting down for 3 or 4 hours and handicapping a whole race card at, say, Santa Anita or Gulfstream, and then you put in a pick 6 or a pick 5 and you hit it and you're excited and it paid $12,000 at the track, and you're at the OTB of Arizona Downs and, oh, I'm sorry, it only paid $200 here. I mean, I just don't see how that's fair. And I think we need to take care of the people that support our industry, the handicappers. Another thing I would like to mention, you as commissioners were appointed. Then you had to be approved by the legislature to be a commissioner, to protect. You were approved to protect horse racing in Arizona. The state legislature that passed the 2019 bill that we're all arguing about here are the same legislature that appointed you guys and approved you. They wanted fair rates. They wanted fair conditions for all parties. That same legislature just passed several budget bills that will help the industry with track improvements and purse improvements. They did that because they want year-round racing in Arizona. They did that because they want horse racing in Arizona. I believe if Monarch doesn't want to be part of Arizona, then Monarch just go away. We have fought for 3 years trying to convince them to come in here and play on a fair playing ground. If Monarch don't want to come in here and play on a fair playing ground, let's just move on without them. We got Twin Spires and Naira. They got great tracks. We've survived the last 3 years without Monarch. Let's just go on without him. I guess that concludes what I'd like to say. But on the other thing that Mr. Claus said, and I'm not an attorney, and I don't study law, but I do believe, Mr. Claus, that the Arizona law states you need the horseman's approval to come in from out of state. I know the federal law does not, but I do believe the state law does.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
I appreciate your input. Mr. Yother, do you need time?
Yes, sir, if I may. Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners, Leroy, I concur with everything Leroy has had to say, and that was the reason I had my hand raised, is the Arizona law says that the tracks have to have the permission of the horsemen before they can run or simulcast horse racing in the state of Arizona. Arizona Downs has a current contract that ends at the end of this meet. After that date, neither Turf Paradise nor Arizona Downs has a contract with, if I'm not mistaken, none of them have a contract, and I know they don't have a contract with the horsemen. And with that being said, it's not fair that one competitor has the advantage over another in a free enterprise system. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand we have no contract with Turf Paradise. We do have a current contract with Arizona Downs, and we do not, and if I'm not mistaken, I hope I'm not getting ahead of myself, but if I'm not mistaken, you received a letter yesterday rescinding our approval for this passing of this item 4A. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Yother. I think, one thing that I'll speak about on my side of the commission is I would like to applaud the department for all of the efforts that they have done trying to get a one signal system. I realize that there are concerns and restrictions on both sides of the spectrum with that, but if we're going to move forward on this, in my opinion, the only way that we're going to be able to do that is by using a one-line system. What I would like to do is request from the department, using Kelly and our other legal entities, to be able to build and develop a one-track betting system so that, or one line spacing on it, one line network. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. System, so that we can bring everybody to the table and resolve the legal side of the issue that most are concerned about, so that, frankly, we don't have to have this battle every other week. But that's where I stand on it personally. I'll open it up to my fellow commissioners. Mr. Claus, I know you have your hand up. I'll give you 30 seconds before we leave.
Thank you, Chairman Coolidge. I just want to reiterate that Mr. Gessman just referred to, quote, the statute that we are all talking about, and Mr. Yother referred to the Arizona law. And again, agenda item D.4 has nothing to do with the Arizona statute. Agenda item D.4 has nothing to do with the Arizona law, and there's nothing in section 5-112, even if we were talking about it, that allows the horsemen to rescind the consent that they've already given, which they have already given for 3 of the racetracks that are part of agenda item D.4. But again, Chairman, I would ask that the commission follow the precedent that it has set and only hear discussion about the agenda item and limit and relegate its decision on this matter to section 3004 of the IHA, since that is the only item on the agenda. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, 3 years ago, this was dark. I'm gray now. I thought 3 years ago we were going to be moving forward and having year-round racing, and we were going to be expanding. It was going to be a great thing, and it's just been 3 years of back and forth, and I just don't feel like we've ever moved forward. And I do agree with you, Mr. Chair, that we need to, I believe, move to some other resolution, single network or something, because we have got to save the sport. Every day people are moving on to other forms of betting, and we can't afford to be losing our customers. Otherwise, we're never going to save our sport here in Arizona. And just me personally, because this agenda item is before OA, I'm personally a little nervous about moving forward regarding this item. So I've just said my piece. Thank you.
Can I make one comment, Jerry Sims, about this, about your comment, Commissioner Coolidge?
I'll give you 1 minute, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Jerry Sims with Turf Paradise. I can't do a single network. I've had my lawyers look at it. There was a report that was done by an outside company, a financial report by the department, and to sum it up, they use the word that they are insolvent. They've had these other folks paying their bills from Colonial Downs, but they are insolvent, says they can't. I'm afraid that if I have any involvement and they go into a bankruptcy, I've asked 2 firms. I can't get out of being included in that bankruptcy. And I will not do anything that puts me where I'm in some form of a business with them. And dressing it with attorneys, putting language that says this and this, they tell me the judges will put it all into bankruptcy and weed it out later. Next day I'll read front page of the paper, Turf Paradise in bankruptcy. There goes my business. And it's so foreseeable that you just can't have me get in business with them. It's just not fair. I've worked my whole life to do what I'm doing, started without a nickel, and now I'm going to put it all on the line for some people that are insolvent. So
Yes,
anyway,
sir.
thank you for giving me time.
I'm very aware of that, sir, and that's exactly why I want the department to bring in, whether it's the Attorney General's office or whoever, to be able to give to you that peace of mind, and if it's even possible, I want to be able to explore all of those things together, because otherwise we're going to continue to end at this stalemate until either something happens with OA or whatever moves forward from there. So, I would suggest to all the parties involved to work together as much as we can on this with the department and the legal side, whether it's the Attorney General's office, to build something together. Otherwise, the entire industry is going to hurt, and no one
in the meantime
wants that to happen.
I'm with you, but in the meantime, we have 3 tracks that have been approved that would be big for our bettors. Just 3 tracks out of those ones. They can't withdraw their consent. That's clear in the law. And 3 tracks they have already consented to. We have the consent. That's what we're there for today. At least give us 3 tracks that have been, and that's 3 out of 20? But give us those 3 so that we can, we did it in good faith. They signed it in good faith. We want to be able to show those 3 tracks, and then we'll come back to you. I will go through the process that you just mentioned, and I will make every effort to see if there's a way to do it. And if we can't, then it'll be evident to everybody. It won't be me saying no to something that is obviously could work, because I will do that. But in the meantime, please give us these 3 tracks so that we can run our business.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from my fellow commissioners?
Obviously for me, it's a torn situation. I want to do right by our customers who would like to be betting the Monarch tracks, but I also don't want to have anti-competitive deals going on as well. And actually, the third item, this is before OA right now. And I'm just nervous moving forward that we do muddle up that issue with OA, and I think we do need to hear from them before we do anything else and make this case even bigger. I've got a garage full of boxes of legal paperwork from all the lawsuits and everything that have been going on for years here, and I just can see more coming if we don't go down the right path.
Chair Coolidge, if this is the appropriate time, I'd like to make a motion to enter executive session.
It's an appropriate time. Yes, ma'am. I'll second that. Sorry, Commissioner Gore, I was watching you.
I was waiting for you.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Olson to go into executive session, and Chair Coolidge has seconded that. The roll call, Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
These others demand every
Commissioner Olson, please stop. Commissioner Olson, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you. This open session is recessed for the 3rd executive session. The time is 12:08.
I'm here.
Thank you. Okay, seeing that we have our quorum back, I will go ahead and call the roll to bring us back out of the executive session. Commissioner Coolidge?
Present.
Commissioner Gray?
Present.
Commissioner Olson?
Present.
Thank you. This 4th open session is reconvened at 12:19.
All right. Mr. Author, I see you have your hand raised. Do you have something new to add?
I do have something new, and it'll just be very short. Number one, Mr. Claus is incorrect about his interpretation of federal law. The Arizona Racing Commission must give its approval under the IHA. But state statute says that in order for the commission to give its approval, it must first obtain the approval from the horsemen. So your approval under the IHA is conditioned by Arizona law, and you're unable under Arizona law to approve one of these signals without the approval of the Arizona HBPA. Number two, we appreciate Mr. Sims' concern about our financial condition, but while Ms. Wagner is doing her research, would she please research what effect Ron Sims' lawsuit has on a single network system? Should Mr. Sims prevail, would he be able to get a judgment against us and our OTB system in order to pay for that? And that's a concern that we have. Nevertheless, we want to go full speed ahead, Chairman Coolidge, with a plan for a single network system, and we've been trying to do it for a long time, and we'll continue to try to work with you to see that happens. Thank you.
Mr. Coolidge?
Did we lose Chuck?
I believe we have lost Mr. Coolidge. The time is...
Sorry, I wasn't able to get to the mute.
Okay, thank you. We're still in open session, sir. It's your floor.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, I think we're good there. Do I have any comments from my fellow commissioners?
I'm good on my end. I don't know about Commissioner Olson. Just my concerns have been stated previously.
Same here. Commissioner Olson, do you have anything to add?
Nothing new from me, no. Thank you.
I'll hear any open motions. Otherwise, I'll make one.
I would move to table this issue to the next meeting due to the fact that we do not have the Horsemen's approval right now, and we are still before OA regarding this issue, and the concern would be if OA should determine that the previous approval of the contract was incorrect, then we have betting that's been going on this item.
Commissioner Olson, do you have any input on that?
No, I'm going to second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion to table until the August 12th commission meeting by Commissioner Garay and a second by Commissioner Olson. Roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
No.
Commissioner Garay?
Yes.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries 2-1, 2 yay, 1 nay.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item E1, track safety reports. Mr. Bays.
Hello, Commissioners. I'm going to be filling in today for Mr. Bays. Magdaleno Perez, one of the stewards. So for the safety issues of concern has been the heat. It's been especially week 3, which was June 15th and June 16th. We had excessive heat warning in Prescott Valley. And Dr. Gale, the chief veterinarian, and the staff did some research. We followed the international guidelines from the Olympics and different best practices, and we implemented those. And Arizona Downs did a great job in this department. They had 2 to 3 staff members right at the finish line, 2 to 3 hoses and buckets of ice-cold water all the way down the stretch. And I'm happy to report there was not one heat-related incident during that week or since, and they continue to follow these practices. The next week it was a little bit cooler, but this last week, just yesterday, was pretty hot, and the trainers and owners were utilizing the hoses and the buckets. So right when the jockeys jump off, there's an employee of Arizona Downs with the hose, and they cool the horses down immediately, the sponge with the ice bath. And so great job to the staff of Arizona Downs for stepping up. And it's not easy carrying those 20-pound ice bags all the way up and down the track. So they've done a great job with that. We're very pleased. The other thing of mention is the staff of the entire team. Whenever there's a emergency situation with the horse pulled up or banned off, everybody seems to just do an excellent job. The gate crew gets right on the scene. The medics have been right there every single time. And it's just an orchestra of everybody doing the horse ambulance. Everything, it gets chaotic, but they've done an excellent job at keeping everything safe. So that's the report for today, Commissioners.
Good job. Thank you, sir. We'll move to...
So I do have a question regarding on this. Please, can you stop disrupting this meeting? The question I do have is I do know we used to get the fatality and injury reports, and Arizona Downs has now obviously been running for a few weeks, and we have not received any information. And I want to make sure we're not missing out on this information, because if there is an issue, I want this addressed. And obviously, as you can see from the disruptions to our meeting, we do have members of the public that are upset about this. And so I want to make sure that we are not overlooking any issues. So I would like to start hearing more about these statistics so that we can address them.
Yes, Commissioner. Dr. Gale's on the line as well, but I do know we've had 2 fatalities race-related per 800 starts.
I think another concern is that we have to understand all this.
So there has been 2 racing fatalities during this meet at Arizona Downs.
Right, and I just, just for the future, would like to, hear more regarding where we are at. I want to make sure we're doing everything we can, and if we are, 1 fatality is one too many in my book. But I just want to make sure we are doing everything that we can to cut these injuries and fatalities down.
I agree with that, Commissioner. Thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
This is Dr. Sue Gale. Do you want some more information on that currently? I can give you a brief statement.
That'd be great. Thanks, Doctor.
Okay. So again, as Meg Stewart-Perez mentioned, there have been 2 on-track injuries that resulted in the horses being euthanized. Again, the track seems to be in excellent condition. There were no predisposing factors. The horses were examined prior to the race. And so this, even though it's a little bit above the average for the nation, it seemed to be those that simply can occur at times and do. I believe I did send a summary last month to Cassie Goodwin, which was distributed, and I will make sure again that I update that with the most recent statistics. We did have 2 other horses that died of illness-related conditions, and then 1 other one during the month of May in training that had an injury. So that's the current state at Arizona Downs.
Are we still having, I know previously we used to have a monthly meeting regarding the statistics, and I think they used to always happen right after the commission meeting, and typically one of the commissioners would attend. Is that still happening?
Those meetings have not been called. We're still in interim management status.
Okay.
Thanks, Doctor. Let's move over to the budget report, please. Mr. Casillas and Mr. LaForest.
Yes, Mr. LaForest is unavailable today, so we will not have a budget report. However, I don't believe that there's anything of any serious concern regarding the budget at this time.
Understood. We can move to the PERS trust account, if you want to speak on that, Director.
Yes, I just wanted to update the Commission that HBPA and Turf Paradise did finally come to terms on the terms of agreement for the trust account, and that has been signed off by both parties, and now the HBPA is in the middle of getting that trust account set up with one of the banks. So we're in good shape there.
Outstanding. Thank you. New application for Mr. Sims. Do you want to speak on that, Mr. Casillas?
I'm going to defer to Mr. Estrada on that.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. We have received Mr. Sims' application. However, we're still pending information before we can license Mr. Sims. He needs to provide documentation that he's 10% or more owner of the track. Meanwhile, it's going to remain in pending status until we receive further information.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. The permittee reports. We've already heard from Greyhound Racing. Do we need anything else from them?
This would be American Greyhound Racing, which would be Phoenix Greyhound Park.
Oh, excuse me, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I received word they had nothing new to report.
Okay.
Thank you. More updates?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, no update for American Greyhound this month. Thank you.
Thank you much. County Fairs.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, did you want the Arizona Downs report?
Yes, sir. Sorry, I didn't hear you speak up before.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, this is Mike Weiss, General Manager here at Arizona Downs. I will report that I feel the meet is going very well. As the world is now, it has been a little tough with staffing, as a lot of people are not wanting to work. However, we are still getting quite the compliments on the cleanliness, the food, and a great deal of compliments on the work on the racing surface. I really do appreciate working with your Racing Commission staff. They seem to understand and have been very, very helpful. Our crowds have been good for Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm pleasantly pleased. Handle on the first 14 days of racing is over 2 million more than it was for the full 21 days when they ran 2 years ago. And I do want to comment quickly that, I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I do want to make it very clear that safety of the riders and the horses always come first. For those who have questioned the horse that was vanned yesterday, that was safety. He had a little bit of blood in his nostrils. He pulled up, and the horse was taken and put in the van and taken directly back. The veterinarian looked at it. The horse is totally fine. Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that.
And I would just like to add, I've been watching the races on RTN, and you have had some exciting races with the horses coming all the way from the back to pull into the win right there at the last moment. So some exciting racing going on. And thank you for taking great care of the track there, and I've not heard any complaints from riders or the trainers. Thank you.
Thank you.
County Fairs. Rito.
Again, this is Mike Weiss, representing Rito Park. There really is nothing new to report at this moment. I do want to make mention we are in conversations with the county about extending the lease, and also I'm sure some will be happy to hear that we are looking into rebuilding the steward stand. Right. Thank you.
Tucson Greyhound.
I received word they have nothing to report.
Thank you, ma'am. Turf Paradise.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, at approximately 9 a.m. this morning, I received an anonymous email complaint concerning the stable area. The nature of the complaint was the manure has not been removed from rows C and D, so I immediately went back to the stable area to inspect that. All the manure bunkers, not only in C and D rows, but throughout the entire stable area, are empty. There is no manure. I think what the complainant saw is in those rows, C and D, there are piles of dirt. The piles of dirt are there because of the excavations we are doing to make changes in the backstretch to installing electrical lines and conduit, plus current technology sewer lines so that our restrooms function better than they have been for our horsemen. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you for being proactive and bringing that to our attention and taking care of it accordingly. I appreciate you being proactive. Stakeholders, Arizona Counties Racing Association, Arizona Quarter Horse.
Yes, Commissioner, Chairman Coolidge, other commissioners, Arizona Quarter Racing has nothing to improve on after a long day. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Arizona Thoroughbred, HBPA.
Yes, Chairman Coolidge and Commissioners, Leroy Gussman, the Arizona HBPA. I just want to kind of reiterate what Director Casillas said. The Arizona Downs Trust account is all set up, and everybody, it's all working as it's supposed to be working as of now. We do have the agreement finally signed and agreed upon with Turf Paradise, so we have an appointment, President Hutton and myself, at Wells Fargo on Monday to get that set up so we can get that working as well. I have had initial conversations with Mike Weiss about Rita. We will start working on that so it's all set up before the meet starts down there. I just would like to say the track here is in excellent shape. I want to just a great thanks to Vic Oliver and his crew. They work on this thing all the time, and I'm across the street in an RV trailer, so I hear the tractors and water trucks going at 2, 3 in the morning.
I'm sorry, we've lost Mr. Coolidge, and we no longer have a...
No, ma'am, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Your thing flashed up saying you were gone. I apologize. Continue.
I just want to say that they're doing a great job with the track. One other thing I wanted to bring to the commission's and everyone else's attention, Chaplain John Shoemaker is hosting a golf tournament here on July 26th. It's going to be at Stone Ridge Golf Club. It will be by tee times, and the tee times will start around 11:30 and go through the early afternoon. We would appreciate all golfers that we can get here to play and support the chaplaincy. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jockeys Guild.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. Ms. Carol here, Western Regional Manager of the Jockeys Guild. Commissioners, I'm glad to report the Jockeys Guild is currently in discussion and working with Turf Paradise to obtain jockeys on-track accident and short-term disability insurance for the upcoming meet. Whereas the racetrack Turf Paradise is the primary insurer, as is the custom with racetracks throughout the country. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you, sir. Any commission reports or matters to be placed on future agendas?
I do, for the next agenda, I would request that we, and he has stated he would be willing to come here, is where's my email? Dr. Mick Peterson from the University of Kentucky to come and discuss the racetrack safety program that they have and some protocols. I would just like to hear from them so that going forward, maybe we can start looking at some of these things, which I do believe may become requirements in the near future.
Happy to make time for that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to that. Mr. Bob Hutton, president of the HBPA, and I have been discussing gathering up information from various jurisdictions regarding track maintenance, and that is part of Mr. Hutton's reaching out to Mr. Peterson. We have obtained a lot of documentation on that matter. The division will be putting forth certain maintenance logs and requirements of what we expect the permittees to conduct with their maintenance of the tracks going forward. So we are diligently working on that matter to try to prevent and mitigate horse fatalities.
Thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, do we have anyone else listed for call to the public?
No, sir, I did not have anybody else reach out on email or to me on text message asking to speak.
Thank you, ma'am. The next regularly scheduled commission will be August 12th at 10 a.m. on this same channel that we're all on. And with that, I'd hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. With the motion by Commissioner Garay and seconded by Commissioner Olson to adjourn, roll call. Commissioner Coolidge?
Yes.
Commissioner Garay?
Most definitely.
Commissioner Olson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. It is 12:41 and this meeting is adjourned.